Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Rob Chatfield. I'm the director for the British Council in Argentina and Chile. Welcome, everyone, to Thursday afternoon of our ELT week. I hope those of you who've been coming every day this week have really enjoyed it and have really got a lot out of the sessions. The ones we had yesterday provided a lot of practical tools and information to start using in your teaching practice. And as you know, you can go back and watch any of the sessions in the week if you've missed them. So before we begin today, I just want to remind you that safeguarding is a priority for the British Council, and safeguarding in this context, we're talking about the videos and the messages that we're all going to be sending to each other. Let's make them more positive. Let's make them more kind. Don't share any personal identifiable information. It's great to see people from different provinces popping up. I can see people from Santa Fe, from Jujuy, from Cava as well. So that's wonderful. If you want to receive a certificate of attendance by the British Council, you'll be asked to complete a short survey at the end of the week. So you've got to come tomorrow. It'll be shared in the chat box at the end of the last session and sent via email to all registered participants. Please make sure your name, surname, and email address are correctly spelled. Otherwise, you might not get your certificate. So going back to safeguarding, just again, let's make nice, positive, supportive comments. Anything that's sort of harmful or inappropriate will be removed from the chat. And you can also report concern to us through the email contact that we are posting in the chat now. So in our first session today, it's my pleasure to introduce Leandro Paladino. Leandro has over 20 years of experience delivering workshops and webinars in Argentina and internationally, including FAPI, IATEFL 2024, that was in Brighton in the UK, and online modules for teachers in Mexico and Argentina with the British Council. A teacher educator at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, Leandro holds a master's in bilingual education from the University of Birmingham. He is an editor for IATEFL's Young Learners and Teens SIG newsletter and the EAL journal, published in the UK by NALDIC, where he serves as a trustee and director. Leandro is the General Academic Manager of Colegio York, a multilingual school in La Plata, Argentina. So welcome, Leandro, and everybody enjoy the session this afternoon. See you soon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's good to see you. I hope that you're having a wonderful time in this ELT week that the British Council has organized. Thank you, British Council, for having me. Today, I'll be talking about digital citizenship with you. And I'd like to start by framing the topic a little bit by telling you on the one hand that I am a parent of 3 teenagers, so I am personally concerned about the digital worlds in which they live. And also, as the academic manager that I am of a multilingual school, I am responsible for the well-being and the safeguarding of the whole school community, kindergarten, primary and secondary students. If you're familiar with the British Council, you know how serious they are about safeguarding, and I think it is in keeping with their views and policies that this webinar is also appropriate. I'll now start sharing my screen. As a single bit of contact, that's the academic Instagram that I use, where I share news and all the work that I do. So please feel free to follow me there and we can be in touch via Instagram. The framing is what I've very briefly already explained, the idea that ELT has become I think it's in a bit of a state of flux, if you will, because we've gone a long way from thinking that teaching English is just a matter of teaching lexis and grammar and phonology. And we've been incorporating a range of other models and constructs, and that has enriched the profession a lot. But I think the tension between going back to basics while we incorporate new models is a thought that we should have uppermost in our mind, whether we are teachers or teacher educators. We will be defining digital citizenship in its various aspects, and we'll be applying it to the world of English language teaching. Ready to go? A quick definition is that digital citizenship is the responsible use of technology by anyone who uses computers, the internet, and digital devices to engage with society on any level. There are good and bad practices, of course, for digital citizenship, like anything in life, whether we connect or empathize or create lasting relationships through digital tools. All questions of cyberbullying and irresponsible social media usage and not using the internet safely. Fortunately, we can teach most of the requirements, if not all, of being a good digital citizenship in the classroom. 7 key concepts around digital citizenship are empathy, which we can work on within or without the digital world, how the internet works, how our data are used online, digital literacies, the digital divide. Many people have access to a lot of online resources. Many other people do not have that much access. How do we acknowledge that divide in our classrooms? Wellness and well-being, and securing digital devices. I'd like to start with a very practical example, a video for you to think about the double approach that we'll be talking about, digital citizenship and ELT practices. Take a look and think about the 7 factors that we've just looked at. How are they present in this video?
When you're on the internet, you mustn't ever show your home address or real name to people you don't know. You must keep your computer password secret all the time. You mustn't tell me yours, and you mustn't ask for mine. You must remember be polite to people that you meet. You mustn't treat them differently from people in the street. And if you feel uncomfortable at something someone said, you mustn't keep it secret, tell a grown-up friend instead.
You may want to type in the chat or at least make a mental note. Which of these numbers do you see present in that video? I personally find that to a larger or lesser extent, all of them, possibly with the exception of the digital divide, all of them are present in this video. And you must have noticed that in terms of language, besides must and mustn't, you can also include other elements of modality. Well, this is what you must do, but then you have a choice. You can talk to your mom, you can talk to your dad, you can talk to a teacher. Cause and consequence links, including conditionals, like if you receive a message of this kind, tell a grown-up, which is in turn an imperative. So a lot of language that you can embed, and that's the point of today's talk, how we can mutually enrich ELT with a digital citizenship curriculum and vice versa. This is actually the plan on this wonderful set of resources, Learn English, that the British Council has. You've got a whole lesson plan, and you see there you've got the Lexis that you can do, because being digitally literate, the literacies means, have I got the vocabulary to talk about my digital life and digital security, etc. Just like if you do social emotional learning, you need to have words to talk about feelings and emotions. If you haven't got access to a computer, you can do this on the board. The students can write this down, and you work on collocations and significant language to equip your students and make them digitally literate. This is a book I recommend. Not ELT related, but that's the point, that we enrich our practices by looking at other models. Digital literacies are here defined as the ability to creatively engage in particular social practices, to assume appropriate social identities, and to form or maintain various social relationships when using a complex combination of media. The highlighting is mine, and notice the repetition of the word social, social, digital, digital, social. We are social beings. So what happens with the sometimes tricky world, because since it's often anonymous, that's why we need to pay more attention to what is happening in our students' lives through their digital worlds. Mediation, a key term that the Common European Framework of Languages has incorporated, is involved in being digitally literate. Media are cultural tools with affordances and constraints. These are the two technical terms that we use to talk about the possibilities, very exciting sometimes, but also the risks that we need to be careful with. And our students may know a lot about technology, may know a lot about apps, but are they fully aware of the precautions that they need to take? And not that we need to scare them or anything, but simply make them aware of the risks behind the digital worlds. These affordances and constraints can be seen from 5 perspectives. The doing of the digital world. So here, for example, rather than modality, you can work on the simple present. What does each app do? It does this, it doesn't do this. A comparative task between WhatsApp and another similar app. The meaning of everything digital. For example, new verbs that have appeared, like friending somebody and unfriending them as well. So of course, as language teachers, working on the fact that words carry meaning. How about relationships? This is, I think, very important institutionally. The questions of power, symmetry, or the lack of it. Are teachers in an institution allowed to have students or family members on their social media? Are they not? If you're a supervisor, a coordinator, a director, these are decisions that need to be made and informed. How about thinking? A nice thinking line could be, is technology changing us for the better or for the worse? I really like visible thinking routines, and the tug of war is the one that allows you to divide your students between the pessimists and the optimists. If you think that technology is actually changing us for the better and making us more creative or not. Interestingly, if somebody says, oh, but that's not the position that I really agree with, well, never mind. It's a good exercise to try to put yourself in the opposite side, you know, the opposite position to the one that you really think, and more on that a little later. And finally, possibly more important, being. Who am I? And who do I come across in the digital world? The idea that not everything is as ideal, you know, people's lives appear to be perfect sometimes in the digital world. Well, are they really? So maybe contrasting news about famous people for students to see that sometimes things happen to them too, bad things, and that it's not always the ideal world that they might see in online. More examples coming up. We'll be coming and going between framing and giving you things to read or think about, but then looking at very, very practical examples like this wonderful set of resources that I want to share, and then we'll comment on it.
On this episode, it's feet.
Hello, digital citizens. My name is Feet. I'm known for being careful about the footprints that I leave. Today I'm at the park, exploring with my friends. Thinking carefully about where I step is important because I don't want to fall or squish a cute little bug.
Thank you.
Every time we take a step, we leave a trail of footprints. And the same thing happens on the internet. You can't actually see footprints online, but every picture we post or text we send leaves a digital trail of where we go and what we share. I love to post online, but I'm always careful of what I share. For example, some things should only be shared with grown-ups you trust, like your home address or phone number. So remember to think before you share, and use your feet carefully when leaving tracks online.
Hey Feet, I found some strange tracks over here. Come look.
Gotta go, but my question for you digital citizens out there is, what footprints are you leaving online?
If you're like me, you were probably thinking about the language. I'm doing that all the time. I'm watching a series and then I tell my wife, wait, let me go back. That's a nice language sample that I can use with my C1 class or something. So, you know, anything from the tenses, modal verbs, keep an eye on that as we look at the material. What language points can you work on? This is a wonderful set of resources from the United States. There you've got the website to take a look at. And here we see Feet, one of the digital citizens, talking about the footprint that we leave online. Technically, we call this entextualization. You upload a picture, and then even if you delete it, it's not gone. It's there somewhere. It's entextualized. So what do we do about that? And as you can see, to make it child-friendly, yeah, you've got these cute digital citizens where the arms is about well-being, and the guts, privacy, the gut feeling that you might get that something is wrong, the feet that we've just seen, and the heart for relationships, and the legs. Stand up for yourself and stand up for your friends if you know of cases like cyberbullying and digital drama. The head, to be critical with news and media literacy. So that's a wonderful set of resources. Common Sense has plans, bilingual plans in English and in Spanish. So how nice to articulate this and to work with Spanish teachers if you work in schools. This is the beginning of me talking to you about an age-appropriate pedagogy. Sometimes there's been traditionally, I think historically, a bit of an adult slant in ELT. Some ELT communities have even been criticized for it, I suppose. And for a long time now, we've become more and more aware of the fact that we really need to think separately about each age group. And here, we've already looked at the digital citizens. Now we'll look at 3 other tasks that can easily become project work for different ages. And here I want to make this disclaimer. It's up to you to decide how old the students need to be. You might need to talk about this with your supervisors. This is a very context-sensitive decision to make. Look ahead at sexting, for example. This can be sensitive, so you need to be careful for how you go about working with certain topics. Let's begin with don't feed those fish. But before that, one other thing that I want you to think about as we look at the material is the 5 modes of meaning making that make up this multimodal world in which we live. Digital and multimodal are like 2 sides of the same coin. Linguistic, obviously, because we're language teachers. Oral, because we do speaking and listening. How about the other modes? Instagram stories are perfect examples of this, because have you seen how they've been evolving? And now they're like little works of art, because you can put music and text and GIFs and all kinds of things. This is something to read if you're interested in this. And because I teach discourse analysis, this is a textbook that I use. And I just wanted to share with you the difference between the 2nd edition and the 3rd edition of the book. Do you see there? Chapter 9 in the last edition, Discourse and Digital Media, right between multimodal and critical discourse analysis, and more on critical discourse analysis in a minute as well. Again, just to leave you with things to read, or if you are multimodal yourself and you prefer to watch and look rather than read, this is a set of short lectures from the University of Illinois that you might find interesting if you want to take some of these topics a little bit further. So this is Don't Catch the Fish with a PH. Take a minute to look at what you can see on the screen to see if you can make out, if you can see through the activity. Click it or skip it. What is it that students are expected to do? They need to read and decide whether You can do this as a traffic light sort of activity. Is it green? So is it safe to click on this? Is it yellow? A bit iffy. Is it red? Like I should completely delete this? Maybe completely green, it'll never be. That's what we need to talk to our students about. So as green as to think that you can click on it. And here I think that there's only one of the four. If you want to write in the chat or simply think about it, because I find that only one of the four looks a little closer to green. The others all look a little yellowish or yellow to red. As we'll see in a minute, probably the one Mary tells us, because it's got a name and because it may really come from a reliable source. So what you can do is you can share with your students the 7 red flags. And I've done this with 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds, and they are incredibly good at becoming critical about all this if you know how to tackle this. Never underestimate young learners. It's all about how you go about doing things with them, of course. Is there a sense of urgency in the message? Are there errors? From a friend, understandable, but if it comes from the very app that you're using or from a company, yellow to red. Alert, alert, a friend in trouble, but is it really a friend? A website that looks a little, well, fishy. Too good to be true for an offer. A greeting that's not there. Is it missing? No, this is not the way that my friend would normally say hello to me. If you've ever received any attempted scam like this, say on WhatsApp, for example, maybe you've said, no, this is not how my friend opens conversations with me. I smell a rat here. So then, using these 7 flags, you give students texts of this kind. And if you want, you can write in the chat number 1, number 3, number 7. Which red flags do you see to be able to say, no, I don't think I'm going to click on this. This looks at the very least yellow. The sense of urgency, number 1, perhaps. A friend in trouble, but is it really a friend? There's no greeting there. How about this one? Which numbers would this be? Too good to be true. Language errors there. An ad with errors. We know that it can happen, but it's the beginning of a red flag. And that very, very fishy, iffy looking website as well. So you see why ELT and DC together, because you're doing reading comprehension, you're doing language work, you're doing error correction, but not for the sake of it, but rather in order to train students with these very, very useful life skills. How early do you start? Well, again, you decide. You know that there's a lot of talk around the world about whether cell phones should be banned in schools or not, at what age they should be allowed, etc. This is not the space to have a serious debate about this because, in fact, as I've said before, this is a very context-situated set of decisions. So this is making our students critical discourse analysts, even if they're quite young. I always like the phrase, do not grade the material, grade the task. So use authentic material and then scaffold your way through the tasks for students to finally understand the ultimate goals of what you're proposing. I'll show this, which is sexting, as you can imagine from the blend of the words, receiving or sending messages of a sexual kind that the other person does not want to receive. And first watch, and then we'll make a few comments about it.
I'm not totally sure why a lot of times girls would want to send pictures like that or send that kind of text.
Why do I think people send nudes?
To showboat.
Sometimes people do it because they want to. Sometimes people don't want to do it and they feel like they've been pressured into it.
If their friends are doing it and their friends are like telling them they should do it, they can just send the picture.
Most guys don't think about the consequences that girls have.
Sometimes you send that picture because you want someone to tell you that you're beautiful. And that's another form of obligation.
I'm not totally sure why a lot of times girls would want to send pictures.
I wanted to stop there for you to see how you can find this on YouTube. If you simply look it up like that on YouTube, Teen Voices Sexting, you'll find this video. And I write WH analysis there because I think sooner or later, somebody will have to talk to children or teenagers about this. So the question is when and where and how and why and what sorts of permissions do you need to have? I was a bit shocked, truth be told, when I saw this recommended for 14 or 15-year-olds. But then I thought, and then I talked to my oldest son about it, who's 15, and he said, well, Dad, yes, I have heard of cases of this kind. So we might think that this had better be preventative and that the children should be at some point aware of certain dangers before they actually occur so that they're ready if it ever happens to them. So can you get the community involved? You know, you can do workshops and talks about this and many of the things that we're talking about. This is really like a community sort of idea, not just you alone as an English teacher. You are inserted in a community with other teachers, maybe teachers of other subjects and parents and families. So this is, I think, one of the many elements within a digital citizenship curriculum. And again, the language here, you can become more like conditionals, you know, if this were to happen to me, what would I do? You know, or if I had known this earlier, what would I have done? You know, hypothetical thinking is sometimes a little bit easier. And did you notice the multimodality in this video, how there were different things going on? So the multimodal aspect is there in this video very, very strongly. Of course, if you watch this on YouTube, you can click on closed captions and you can watch the subtitles, and that's a way to make the material more accessible. Again, do not grade the material, grade the task, and using subtitles can be a way to do it. Do you know what a filter bubble is? Also called an echo chamber. Let's talk for a minute about what they are, why they can be a problem, and how to burst them. This is like a mini lesson plan. You can begin by asking your students, what is a bubble? What does it mean to live in a bubble? Which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's inevitable. We cannot possibly be familiar with and aware of every single situation in the world. And what about an online bubble? How about filter, if this is a filter bubble? In what way can online media filter us, filter our ideas, filter our thoughts? And then the main task will be that as you watch the video that I'm going to show you, you try and answer these questions, the questions that I'll ask you to try and answer. And also keep an eye on the language points so that we come and go with these blended syllabuses that we're talking about. About that, I want to insist on this because teachers sometimes say, well, I've got so little time. I've got the book and I've got the workbook and I've got the exams. You know, how can I find time for separate strands like a digital curriculum strand? And then the answer is precisely this. You do not have to think separately. You need to find ways to connect the typical grammar and lexis, etc., and try to find topics and texts and videos that allow you to work with those same language points.
It might be the biggest feature of politics in the social media age. It's called an echo chamber or a filter bubble. What it means is that online, you tend to see things you already agree with. Over time, that might solidify your opinions. It might make you less open-minded and unable to see things from the other side. The effect is mostly caused by two things. The first is your friends. You're likely to agree more with the people who you like and follow on social media. That's not new. We've always tended to agree more with our family, friends, and neighbors. But the other cause of the filter bubble effect is more recent. It's the way algorithms used by social networks tend to show us things we've already shown an interest in. So if you click on links from a particular political party, America first, Facebook will show you more of the same and less of what you don't click on. That's how the social media-powered filter bubble forms. So, how do you get out of your filter bubble? One way is simple. Read stuff from the other side. If you're right-wing, check out left-wing accounts, or vice versa. You can also fool the algorithms. Start liking things you disagree with and commenting on posts you wouldn't ordinarily read. Do that enough, and you might see stuff you would have missed. New angles on stories you've heard before, or whole new things you didn't know anything about. What will that give you? Well, you might find yourself understanding people with different points of view. You will probably be less shocked if your side doesn't win. You might even find yourself changing your mind.
This is how you find this video on YouTube, BBC Trending Filter Bubble, and you'll find it there. And is this not really very important in a world that sometimes seems divided between completely opposed positions? And it seems that a person, if they've got a certain idea, then they may be incapable of accepting that the opposite idea may have even a little bit of validity in it. So I think this is a really important aspect to tackle. I'm not really following the chat, by the way. So if you've got questions or comments, please leave them there and we can address all of that at the end. So I think the video is quite self-explanatory, isn't it, in terms of what is a filter bubble, why can it be a problem, and how can we burst it? Is that not so interesting? Make an exercise of clicking on things that you don't necessarily like, possibly not the opposite football team. You might not convince children very easily to do that, but perhaps other things. So that we can burst that filter bubble. Here you get Facebook mentioned in this video, but it's Instagram, it's, you know, anything else really. In fact, you'll all be starting classes soon, certainly if you are in a similar context as me in the global south. A year ago, quite exactly, there was this very big and rather moving case where Mark Zuckerberg underwent trial, you know, because a number of families of children that had been affected in some way even committed suicide, and he had to undergo trial. There are very strong videos where the judge asks Mark Zuckerberg to stand up and to turn around and to face the families and apologize to them. That material, which I haven't included here for questions of time, can also be very, very good reading and video, you know, multimodal material to start the year with this topic.
It might be.
So this is a bit of a worksheet you can do. The students begin by thinking about what topics are inside their filter bubble, and then what topics might burst their filter bubble. I like to do mini projects here like Guess My Feed, in which the students write about or design. They can become a bit artistic about it, like their Instagram feed or something similar to that. And then the rest of the class have to guess whose feed that is. Whose feed is it anyway, you can call it. So if I'm into cats and plants and hockey, well, I will add things to my feed, you know, with pictures or texts or whatever that have to do with cats and plants and hockey. In fact, if the students feel comfortable with it, maybe a student can pick somebody else in the class and design their feed, and then they can put posters maybe around the classroom, and they have to go around and try and decide. And then the winner might be the one that guesses the greatest number of feeds because they've seen through the filter bubbles. They know their friends enough that they know a lot of people's filter bubbles. And then you can discuss this idea of, well, how can you burst it? How can you look for other interests whilst keeping your own, of course? The latest chapter in the digital citizenship curriculum is, of course, artificial intelligence. I personally prefer to think of AI literacies as this precisely, the latest and very, very influential and powerful chapter in the digital literacies, rather than thinking that they are a separate set of literacies. But whichever way you see it, digital citizenship plus multimodality leads quite naturally to artificial intelligence. And because the question of fake news, what's genuine and what's not, is very much a challenge with artificial intelligence, you can begin by showing students pictures of faces such as this, just like I'm asking you now. Do you think this, thumbs up if you think this face is real, thumbs down if you think this face is artificially created? I wish I could see your thumbs up or thumbs down. What about this, thumbs up or thumbs down? True or fake, artificial? How about this one? All three, believe it or not, are artificially created. So very simple materials like this can be the beginning of a set of activities that you do, where you do here visual literacies, and I like visible thinking routines a lot. So see, think, wonder. If you're familiar with that, what do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? With short videos such as this, and again, it could be what do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder?
Okay, ready?
Okay.
Here we go! Ah! Woo! It's green. That's awesome.
This is one of the many people, is that King, is it? That produces this videos where it's, I think the title for the project can be Seeing is Believing, or Is Seeing Believing, etc. And looking at videos and pictures that defy really what's really possible. So let's always have the yellow light on. This is another little one about hitchhiking.
This is how I hitchhike. Woo!
So you see how short but powerful triggers to talk about what's real and what's not, to talk about, you know, always be careful, always be on the alert. This is great, this website, thisx-does-not-exist.com, and you get anything from this graffiti, this airport, this person, this cat. There are like mini websites within the website with ideas and texts and tasks that you can do. Very, very powerful, very interesting. You can start by showing one yourself, and then the students can click another one, explore it, and then present their findings. Really, really worth taking a look at. And again, artificial intelligence helping us to explore the sometimes blurry line between what's real and what's not, what's true and what's fake. So before I show you some final activities, I'd like to revisit the aims of what we're doing. This idea of embedding and having blended syllabuses rather than looking for something completely separate, rather than look for an hour a week where you do digital citizenship, really try and blend it in a clear sort of way. It's like content and language integrated, and the importance of course, age appropriate practices, which as a person that works and researches young learners and teenagers, I find very, very important to keep talking about this. Sometimes it makes me think, you know, where maybe activities or something is presented as if it were for everybody, you know, well, primary and secondary, all of it together, you know, let's be a bit critical about that. Then we've defined digital citizenship with those 7 aspects that we talked about, remember, empathy and securing digital devices, etc. And the 5 perspectives, the doing and the meaning and the relating, from which we can look at the affordances and the constraints of digital citizenships. And although I haven't been able to touch on this a lot, but multimodality, because it is inevitably one of the sides of the digital world, at least in passing, I wanted to say a little bit about that. And in a broader sense, I think as professionals, we need to stay alert to what happens in the next few years, in the next decade or so, with this tension between having understood that teaching words and grammar and phonology, well, it's not enough, but because the swing of the pendulum sometimes takes a profession a little bit to the other extreme, now there are so many contracts, so many literacies, you know, to look at, and citizenships also of different kinds, intercultural citizenship and critical citizenship, and, you know, decolonizing the curriculum. So many models that it can be a bit daunting, particularly if you're an early career teacher. It will be interesting to see how the profession moves by finding a happy medium between those tensions. So to finish with 2 entry points to digital citizenship, humor is of course a bit of a door into anything. So quick jokes like, why did the computer show up at work late? It had a hard drive. If Bill Gates had a penny for every time I had to reboot my computer, oh wait, he does. What's the best way to learn about computers? Bit by bit. Why did Wi-Fi and the computer get married? Because they had a connection. Whether the students find it funny or not, because of course, if humor has to be explained, then it stops being humor. But I think we should never stop trying. And beyond this particular topic, I always tell teachers, never finish a topic, say the home, the family, travel, without looking up jokes, memes, puns, without asking the students to look up for things that would touch on what Jacobson would call the poetic function of language, this idea of punning and the aesthetic pleasure that we often derive from language, embedded in every topic that you do, and in this case, technology or the digital world. Get students looking up things like this rather than only you bring this up. And when it becomes a habit, then they enjoy looking for puns and jokes and GIFs and memes, etc. The second entry point is personalizing. Begin by talking about your own digital practices before the students tell you about theirs. So I would say I am using less Facebook and more Instagram. I have a YouTube channel with family videos. I often check out people's profiles before accepting them. Don't you? Doesn't everybody? My dad is a little obsessed with sending us info on scams. My dad has fallen for a scam or 2. I have 2 X accounts, one personal, one academic. So you see how much language there can be embedded in this, you know, all kinds of tenses and all kinds of things. Now, another activity I do with this, I need to use my phone to read it from there. Now you'll understand why. Gapped dictation. I will repeat these sentences. Take another quick look, because I will repeat them, but when I snap my fingers, there will be a word missing, and you'll have to say which word that is. I am using Facebook and more. I'm using, yes, less Facebook and more Instagram. I have a YouTube with family videos. A YouTube channel. Yes, you see, I'm working with collocations, literacy, digital literacies. I often check out people's, before accepting them, people's profiles before accepting them. My dad is a little with sending us info on scams. He's a little obsessed with sending us info on scams. My dad has fallen for a or 2. My dad has fallen for a scam or 2, and here I am revising the word scam, which was part of the previous sentence. I have 2 Twitter, 1 personal, 1 academic. I have 2 X accounts, 1 personal and 1 academic. Of course, you can write these on the board with the blanks, but to make it more agile, I like to do this gap dictation sort of thing, which activates collocations and links a little bit more quickly. Obviously, you can do this with any kind of vocabulary. And then a third thing that I do is, can you see through my lies? Because of these 6 facts, 1 is not true. 1.5. There's 1.5 lie. So would you like to think which number is not true for me? And one is only half true. My dad is a little obsessed with sending us scams, and he did he got this phone call from Netflix saying that he didn't pay a little bit more money, and he paid for that. And with my brothers, we were like, Dad, come on, you're a lawyer. You're supposed to see through these things, but doesn't it happen to everybody? Can it not happen to everybody? So it's also something to discuss with older students as well. The one that's false is number 6. I've never used X ever. And now I'm sort of glad that I'm not using it, looking at how it's sort of become. And number 2 is a half lie, because I do have a YouTube channel, but with webinars and interviews and things like that, not with family videos. And then another way to personalize this, and another entry point to this is, what about the digital family? If you're happy to share this, So there you can see my wife, Hime, and my older son, Facu, and my middle daughter, Annie, and my youngest daughter, Jose. And typically my students would know my family. So they have to say, well, which of the 5, only one in the family has an iPhone. Who do you think that may be? Facu. Can you believe it? 2 of us do not have a double Instagram account. I do. I've sort of anticipated it, because I keep one private, friends and family, and then the one that I shared earlier today is only work and academic stuff. That's my own protecting of my digital life. It's Hime and Jose that do not have a double Instagram account. Is it Hime or me, do you think, that likes to control the kids' media more? Hime sometimes goes like, oh, I think something is going on with Facu. Do you remember his password? I want to check if, and I go, no, come on, let's talk to him about it. But well, that's a nice synergy, I think. And well, if we've been together for more than 20 years, I think the synergy works in terms of our approaches, because no approach is right or wrong. It's all about thinking why you do the things you do as a parent, as a teacher, as a director. Which of the kids do you think has been checking? The phone allows you to say 1 hour, 2 hours. How long have I been using it? Facu, again. Yes, and it's been saying, oh, but my friend Pedro uses it more than me. And you go like, well, I don't care about Pedro. You are my son, and I'm interested in what you do. But it's healthy. That's his well-being. Just like this next one. One of us reminds the rest to leave the phone during meals. Who do you think might do that? We all do. We take turns. We've got a list on the fridge, and no, we don't have that list. But it's always somebody, interestingly, and I'm proud of the family well-being as far as that. But there's always one that if somebody else touches, reaches out for the phone, they say mealtime, leave the phone. So this is, I think, a good example of the school family, classroom family connection that it's always interesting to have. So I hope you found some of these ideas interesting in terms of digital topics, but probably others. Of course, you can adapt these ideas for any topic that you may be dealing with. So I suppose that if any of these ideas have helped you to think about your year, the classes that many of you are about to start, and ideas that you can implement from the very beginning of classes, then, well, my job here is done. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful teaching year.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm back on the screen. I am back on the screen. That's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, do we have any questions from all of you guys out there? I can see all of these. I can see all of the comments coming in, which have been fantastic. Some wonderful interactions, some great people coming in from provinces all over Argentina. So come on, let's have some questions. Get some questions into the chat. We've got Leandro here with us. As he mentioned earlier, he's wearing a different shirt to when he recorded the video, so that's always a giveaway. But there's been loads of really positive comments, loads of excellent remarks about the ideas, the practicalities of it, Leandro. the one that was, there was a comment about decolonization of the curriculum. Could you explain to us a little bit more what you mean by that? How does that work?
I assume that a lot of you listening are in Argentina, so you'll understand if I start from an example, which should be clear to people elsewhere. On the 12th of October, we celebrate what used to be called El Día de la Raza, like the race day or something like that, and the name has been changed. And my students in teacher training college did a project about that, about how the names reflect realities. And that's a simple example of how we can decolonize the curriculum, because even the phrase discovered America, we often say Columbus discovered America. And of course, America was there long before Columbus arrived. So as language teachers, and because words have power, revisiting those words and ultimately seeing if something can be done in order to change the words that reflect and that define reality is what decolonizing the curriculum is all about. To think that languages like English, like Spanish, they're very strongly colonial language, and we cannot change that fact, but we can be critical about the historical processes that language is also a part of.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's great. Thanks very much, Leandro. We had actually a cheeky question from somebody saying, which one is the real Leandro, the one with the beard or the one without the beard? That's cool.
My alter ego.
Your alter ego. So that's wonderful. So listen, Leandro, thank you so much for giving us all of your time and your ideas. And I thought that was a really, really fascinating presentation. So thank you very much for what you've done for us and for joining us for our ELT week. And we wish you all the best for the rest of the year. So if everyone, all the team who are watching, if you can all give applauses and some reactions and some comments to say thank you to Leandro, it would be great. So have a great rest of the evening,
Thank you for that,
Leandro.
Robert, and thanks everybody. I was watching also on YouTube, and I was following the reactions. Very, very generous of you, and well, good luck everybody in the year that you're all probably about to start. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, British Council, for having me. I've had a great time.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to our next presentation now, which is our next speaker is Maria Eugenia Ianiro, and she has a Bachelor of Arts in English and a Master's in Professional Development for Language Education. She's got over 20 years of experience in English language teaching. She's taught learners at all levels and now focuses on training future educators. Maria Eugenia regularly delivers workshops and presentations in both online and face-to-face formats. Her professional interests include methodology, metacognition, continuous professional development for teachers, inclusive education, and socio-emotional learning. She is deeply involved in the ELT community as an active contributor and presenter. Now, this is a particularly interesting topic, I think, because I was actually in our teaching center today, meeting with all of our remote teachers. And one of the things that they all said to me is thinking about the year that's coming, the year ahead, is that they're dealing with increasing numbers of students with special educational needs or educational challenges. And I think this is something that, I remember when I was an active teacher with sort of 200 students in a year, I did have students with special educational needs, and I didn't really feel like I had the training to cope with that. So we want to try and help that today. So the session today from Maria Eugenia is all about strategies that help dyslexic learners and everyone else. So I really hope you enjoy this session, and please can you ask any questions that you want to in the chat, and we can try and respond to them at the end. So enjoy the session. Have a good one.
Hi everyone. Well, thank you, British Council Argentina, for this possibility. It's a real honor for me to be part of this week. So thank you. I'm going to start the session trying to share my screen. Let's see if you can see the presentation. Can you see it? Well, as I said before, thank you, British Council, for giving me the possibility of being part of ELT Week Argentina 2025. Welcome to the session, people. This is about strategies that help dyslexic learners and everyone else. So if you have any question, any idea, any comment you want to make, don't hesitate and write it in the chat. And at the very end, we're going to have some minutes for discussion. We are going to try to answer your questions, and we are going to share your comments and ideas too. So let's hope you enjoy the presentation. So this is the agenda for today. First, I'm going to start sharing some facts that caught my attention when I was preparing the presentation. Then we're going to revisit the concept of dyslexia. We are going to deal with some misconceptions. We're going to analyze some regulations that exist at national level. We are going to see how we can identify students with dyslexia in the class. We are going to see how we can adapt material and how we can accommodate the class. And last but not least, we're going to leave the session with this notion of spark. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. So, some facts. These two facts really caught my attention, and I consider that they are really interesting for you to know them. So the first one is at international level, and it says that according to the International Dyslexia Association, 15 to 20% of the global population has a language-based learning disability, and 70 to 80% has deficit in reading. At national level, we can say that specific learning difficulties, including dyslexia, affect between 10% and 15% of the Argentinian population. At least 1 in 10 children with dyslexia struggles in school, and most lack an accurate diagnosis. This was said by María. She's the president of Dysfam Argentina. Dysfam is an international organization. In fact, it is the International Dyslexia Family Organization. So I want you to enjoy this presentation and listen to this presentation with these two facts in mind. And let's see if at the very end of the session, you can leave the session with some ideas and strategies you can use to implement with your students in the class. So let's start. So what is dyslexia? I know that probably you may have an idea of what dyslexia is. So what is dyslexia? There are different definitions of the term dyslexia. It was first used to describe a range of specific learning difficulties that include dysgraphia, which is a difficulty with handwriting and written communication. Dyscalculia, which is the difficulty with mathematical formulas and mathematical operations. Dyspraxia, which is kinesthetic and motor impairment, among others. Rose defines dyslexia as a learning difficulty that primarily affects the skills involved in accurate and fluent word reading and spelling. What I can tell you is that dyslexia has a Greek origin. This means difficulty, and lexia comes from lexis, and it means words and language. In its simplest way, we can say that dyslexia means problems with words or language. But we can define dyslexia as a language-based characteristic that involves weaknesses in phonological awareness and word decoding. Dyslexia is a brain-based disorder that causes difficulty in using and processing linguistic and symbolic codes. What are the main characteristics of dyslexia? What are the main characteristics of dyslexia? Well, we can say that people who suffer from dyslexia, they have difficulty in decoding individual words, they have poor reading fluency, and they have spelling weaknesses. What I can also tell you is that dyslexia is a lifelong condition. However, intervention can have a positive impact on the person's ability to read and write. Something that caught my attention is that dyslexia is found in boys and girls in similar numbers, although it is more common in boys. So now that we have an idea of what dyslexia is, I wanted to see this video, and in this video you're going to see how the brain of a dyslexic person, how the brain reads, how the person with dyslexia reads. Look at this. It's terrible, people. Well, you are going to see that the letters and the sentences are going to move. They are going to fall apart. It depends on the level of dyslexia the person has. Sometimes some words can disappear, some phrases can disappear, disappear, and even sentences can disappear. So as I said before, it depends on the level of dyslexia the person has. So this is super important. I think that we need to have this video in mind when we plan lessons. So we need to take into consideration what we are going to see in the rest of the presentation. Okay, so what misconceptions exist regarding dyslexia? There are different myths about the concept, but but these are the most important ones that we need to know. Students with dyslexia read backwards. Well, this is completely untrue. People with dyslexia don't read backwards. They have reading difficulties, and what they have is letter reversals. Then we are going to refer to this. Some people consider dyslexia as a disease. Well, this is completely untrue. Dyslexia is not a disease. That's why it doesn't have a cure. What we can say is that dyslexia is a condition, is a difficulty, or we can also refer to dyslexia, people who have dyslexia, as having a characteristic. Dyslexic students have a lower level of intelligence. Well, this is also untrue. People with dyslexia generally are very intelligent and they are very creative. The last myth I decided to share with you is the one that says dyslexia occurs in people of some backgrounds and intellectual levels. Well, this is completely untrue. Dyslexia occurs in people of all levels, all backgrounds, and all intellectual levels. And dyslexia exists all over the world. So now that we have revisited the concept of dyslexia, we have been analyzing the misconceptions. We need to know that there are some regulations that exist in Argentina, and we teachers need to know. What we are going to see right now here are three important policies or regulations that exist at national level, yes, in Argentina. The first policy is the National Education Act. It was passed in 2006. It is Ley Nacional de Educación. And in this case, this calls for policies to promote equality in education, designed to address situations of injustice, marginalization, stigmatization, and other forms of discrimination. The second policy that we need to know is the Federal Board of Education, the resolution number 155 from 2011. This is the resolution passed from Consejo Federal de Educación. And this is important because this resolution defines inclusion as transforming education systems and other learning environments to respond to the diverse needs of students. And last but not least, we have Act number 27306, passed in 2016 and implemented in 2018. This is the well-known Ley de Dyslexia. And this law is super important, and I recommend you to read it. And there are two articles that are really interesting, and we need to know them. Article number 3 defines specific learning difficulties as neurological problems that affect cognitive processes related to language, reading, writing, and mathematics operations. Here we have dyslexia included. The second article that we need to know is Article 6. This article states that schools must adapt classes to guarantee all students access to the curricular designs proposed by each country. So here in article number 6, we receive the obligation, yes, we need to adapt our lessons, yes, for all students, including dyslexic ones. Okay, so now, what are the key signs of dyslexia every teacher should know? What we are going to see right now are different signs that we can see in different students, and we are going to see if they have these signs, they may suffer from dyslexia. I have divided this part of the presentation into 3 different parts. What we are going to see is what teachers can see in students that are at preschool years, what students can have at primary school years, and what students can have at secondary school years. So let's start with preschool years. What we can see is that students may have difficulties in learning and remembering the names of the letters in the alphabet. They have inability to recognize letters in their own names. They can have delayed language and vocabulary development. Sometimes they have difficulty in reciting days of the week sequentially in order. They can have some mispronunciation of familiar words. And sometimes they don't recognize rhythm patterns such as cat, bat, rat, for example. And they get very frustrated when they have to color, paste, or cut with scissors. So what happens when students are in primary school? What we can see is that students have difficulty linking letters to sounds. They have letter reversals, as we said before. They get confused. They confuse B instead of D, or the other way around. And sometimes they make inversions, U and N, for example. They have difficulty in reading some words. They get frustrated when they have to complete reading tasks. They have problems with math symbols. Sometimes they confuse signs of operation. They have problems in understanding time concepts. They may have difficulty in learning spelling strategies such as affixes, for example. They have poor oral reading and they lack of fluency. They have a lack of fluency. They have struggled to find specific words and they tend to use vague words, vague terms such as stuff, thing, place, people. They make pauses, they hesitate a lot, they use hums when speaking a lot. Sometimes they get confused with words that sound alike, such as tornado for volcano or lotion for ocean. Generally, they need extra time to respond to questions. And they express themselves very good orally, but not in writing. So what happens in secondary school? What we can observe is that students that may suffer from dyslexia, they have poor spelling. They don't like writing tasks. Yes, they tend to avoid reading assignments and writing assignments too. They have some troubles when they have to summarize texts. Their work speed is very slow. Sometimes they have problems with organizing work. They have difficulty with performing in classes that have reading and writing demands. And of course, they have difficulty in learning a foreign language. And that's why we are here today. So what we need to know is that apart from identifying some signs of dyslexia, there are some tools that may help us determine the student's risk level for reading difficulty. There are different tests. You can find many tests in the web, but I have decided to share with you today two that are recognized and recommended by the International Dyslexia Association. This is the one that it is recommended for school-age children, and it is called the Colorado Learning Disability Questionnaire. In this case, there are 6 different statements. For example, the one number 1 says has difficulty with spelling. Number 2 has had difficulty learning letter names, has had difficulty learning phonics. 4 reads slowly. 5 reads below grade level. And 6 requires extra help in school because of problems in reading and spelling. So the teacher needs to answer each of them according to never, rarely, sometimes, frequently, and always. And at the very end, the teacher is going to obtain a result. And if the student obtains less than 16 points, there is little in the child's developmental history that he or she is at risk for a reading difficulty. If the student obtains between 16 to 21 points, this person has moderate risk. It means that there are features of the child's developmental history that may be consistent with a reading difficulty. If the student has more than 21, there is significant risk. So there are several features of the child's developmental features that are consistent with a reading difficulty. So the teacher needs to suggest a special therapy. So this is another tool. that we can use with adults or with teens sometimes. And in this case, it is a self-assessment tool. So this is a questionnaire of 10 different questions, and we need to answer with yes. And the number of yes answers will give us the result. If we check 7 or more yes, this may indicate dyslexia, and we need to seek consultation from a specialist. So this is another tool that we can implement. As I said before, there are different tools. These are the ones that are recommended by the International Dyslexia Association. Okay, so now the question is, how can we create a more inclusive classroom? How can we include dyslexic learners and students in the classes we have? So we need to make adaptations, accommodations, and modifications. These terms seem quite similar, but they are different. Today we are going to deal with adaptations and accommodations, but I wanted to give you an idea of the difference that exists between the concepts. Adaptations are any adjustments teachers make to meet the needs of diverse learners. Accommodations are adaptations that do not fundamentally change the standards, instructional level or content of what the learners are expected to learn. And modifications are adaptations that do change or alter what the learner is learning. It means that when we modify, when we apply some modifications, we change part of the curriculum. So today we are just going to delve into adaptations and accommodations. So let's continue. So how can materials be adapted? We can adapt material according to the general appearance. For dyslexic people, it is better if we use gray or off-white paper. It is better if we use matte paper to make reading easier. Shiny paper creates a reflection for dyslexic learners. It is better if we use thick paper. If paper is too thin, double-sided sheets can see through and can cause visual interference. It is better if we use books that look attractive with clear and colorful pictures. Okay, as regards legibility, it is recommended for us to use a minimum of 12-14 point font size, Do not use underlining because it makes text blurred from some dyslexic people. And we need to use distinguishable fonts such as Arial, Verdana, Comic Sans, Tahoma, or Trebuchet. These are sans serif fonts. Here you can see in the picture, in the F picture. The F on the right is the sans serif one, and the F on the left is a serif one. If you see the one on the left, the serif one has these curly bits at the very end. Yes, so this is really difficult when we select serif fonts. We make dyslexic learners be like overwhelmed. Yes, and it is very difficult for them to read with this type of font. So here you can see the same text. The one on the right has sans serif font, and the one on the left has serif font. Yes, can you see the difference? There are also some fonts that you can purchase. I can recommend two. One is Sassoon, and the other is Abhond. So they are designed specifically for dyslexic people. So you can purchase them and you can adapt it to your system in the computer. Okay, then we can adapt the material according to the layout and design. We need to use uncluttered layout. We need to limit the possibility of visual disturbance, and we need to incorporate space. We need to put keywords and phrases into summary boxes because dyslexic people can go directly to the summary box and can identify what it is important from what it is not important. It is better if we use bullet points. It is recommended to use 1.5 spacing between typed lines. Of course, it is recommended to use uneven text to make dyslexic students track across from one line to the next easier, like the image you have here. It is better if we break text up into small parts and relate them to the whole text given. And we need to use color as identifier to help dyslexic students distinguish different activities. For example, red for instructions and blue for descriptions, right? Here you can see the same text in the format that it is the traditional one, and this is the dyslexia-friendly format. Can you see the difference? Okay, so now we are going to delve into accommodation. How can we, teachers, accommodate the class? Okay, according to the International Dyslexia Association, we can make accommodations according to materials. We can make accommodation according to instructions, and we can make accommodations according to the student performance. So let's start with accommodations involving material. We need to clarify or simplify written directions. Some directions are written in paragraph form and contain many units of information. So what we need to do is to highlight keywords within the direction. So this makes the dyslexic person go directly to the most important parts. Present a small amount of work. So sometimes we prepare like very long worksheets. So the dyslexic learner needs one part. When the person finishes with this part, with part number one, we can give the second part, so on and so forth. Then it is important to block out extra stimuli. They need colors, but they need space. And everything that it is not essential, it is better to omit it. We need to highlight key information so they can go directly to what it is essential. How can we highlight? Well, we can use bold type or we can use colors. Don't use underlining. It is important to provide a glossary in content areas so they can go, yes, they can remember what it is really important. It is important to develop reading guides. Why? Because it is difficult for them to, for example, imagine that they need to read a novel or a short story. So if you prepare a reading guide, they can go specifically to the points that are important. Yes. Use an audio recording device. Sometimes we give like very long instructions, as I said before. So what we can do is to record the instructions so the dyslexic learner can listen to the instructions. So this is really better for them. And then it says use of assistive technology. Well, allow students to use technology to help them cope with the different tasks. For example, imagine that they need to write a complete essay. Well, what they can do is they can record the essay, and there are some apps that turn what it is in the recording to text. Yes, so this is I think it's I think that the name is to text or something like that. Well, then I will tell you. So allow the use of assistive technology because they really need it. Then we have accommodations involving interactive instructions. So use step-by-step instructions. Sometimes we plan like a complete lesson and we have all the instructions for the whole lesson. So what the dyslexic learner needs is go step by step. So first the instructions for the first part and then continue with the second part. It is important to repeat the directions or instructions. Sometimes it is not necessary for the teacher to repeat instruction, but we can ask partners to repeat the instructions for them. As they need organization because they need structure, it is important to maintain daily routines. So for example, every lesson can start with the agenda and can finish with the metacognitive parts such as the exit ticket. So this can be a daily routine that we can maintain. It is important to provide a copy of lesson notes. For example, we can prepare a presentation for the lesson, so we can have our notes, so we can prepare these notes for the student, so the student can follow the presentation by paying attention, by reading the notes that we have given to him or her. We can also provide students with a graphic organizer. It means that if we prepare a presentation, we can also prepare a graphic organizer with the presentation, about the presentation, so they can follow the presentation by using the graphic organizer. It is important that we combine verbal and visual information. So if we are presenting, we need to use the board, or we can use flashcards, or we can use a presentation that supports what we are saying. So they need both verbal and visual information. It is important to write key points or words on the board, yes? So they need this, so do it. Use mnemonic and acrostic strategies. So this is really important because they can, by just remembering a mnemonic, they can learn a concept. And emphasize daily review. Yes, they need this daily review. What about accommodations involving student performance? Well, allow the change of the response mode. Sometimes we want students to write an email, or we want students to write an essay. Well, this is really difficult for students who suffer from dyslexia. So what they can do is to prepare a monologue, for example, or they can prepare a presentation. So allow them to change the response mode. As I said before, provide an outline of the lesson. So start every lesson with the agenda, with the outline of what the lesson is going to be about. This is important because they have an idea of what they are going to do throughout the lesson. Encourage use of graphic organizers, not just you, the teacher, preparing graphic organizers, but ask them, yes, to prepare their own graphic organizers. Place students close to the teacher. Well, this will depend on the level of dyslexia the person has, yes, so take this into account. Encourage use of assignment books or calendars. So as they need structure, it is important for them to write what they have to do, or to make a kind of record of all the different tasks and assignments that they need to complete. Design hierarchical worksheets. It is better for them if you start with lower order thinking skills activities, and then you finish the lesson with higher order thinking skills activities. So you can use Bloom's taxonomy to with students with dyslexia. So design hierarchical worksheets. Allow use of instructional aids. Sometimes they need the computers or the tablet, so allow them to use them. Or in math classes, allow them to use the calculator. Display work samples. Sometimes when we give an instruction, they need the example of what they have to do. So this is really important. Use peer-mediated learning. Sometimes they need the peer to complete an assignment. Imagine that we want them to write, so this can be a peer-mediated learning activity. And use flexible work times. It means that sometimes they cannot complete the same activity at the same moment the rest of a class does. So allow them to complete the activity later. Yes, so give them more time in case they need. Of course, that this will depend on the level of dyslexia the person has. Well, we are reaching the end of the presentation, and I want to end this session with this idea that every student deserves the opportunity to learn in an environment that supports their strengths and challenges. So let's spark a difference, because when we support dyslexic learners, we create better learning experiences, not just for dyslexic learners, but for everyone. So I wanted to remember this idea of spark. So see dyslexia as a whole school concern. It is not just one student, it is a whole school concern. Protect students' confidence and emotions. Sometimes students who suffer from dyslexia, they have low self-esteem, so protect them. Appreciate the impact of the learning environment. That's why we have been dealing with the accommodation, so they are important. Revisit and rehearse new learning by connecting it to prior knowledge. This is important for all students in the class. And keep expanding your knowledge on dyslexia. Well, I know that this is like a new concept. Some of us, we haven't been trained at the profesorados about dyslexia, but it is our job to expand our knowledge and be like aware of the topic. So keep expanding your knowledge on dyslexia. And well, to say goodbye, I want to share this idea with you that when we empower dyslexic students, we build a classroom where every learner thrives. Inclusion is not just meeting needs. It's about unlocking potential and transforming learning for all, transforming education for all. So people, let's take action. Every small change sparks a bigger impact. Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. If you want to contact me on social media, you can find me as at Eugenia or in Instagram, or at Eugenia in LinkedIn. And if you want to send me an email, you can send an email to eugenia@gmail.com, and I will be answering your questions or doubts. And these are the references I have used to prepare this presentation. So thank you again. Thank you for being here, and thank you, British Council, for this enormous opportunity.
That's fantastic. I mean, look, all the comments in the chat tell us what we need to know, really, which is that was a wonderful presentation, Maria Eugenia. So thank you so much. I think, you know, I personally learned an awful lot of things there, and you know, it's not an area. I was English teacher for about 12 years. It's not an area where I feel even sort of nearly expert. So team, in the comments, we would love to get some questions from you. I have one already that I've got ready, but whilst I'm just locating that, I want to get some questions from the people watching. So you mentioned that brightness is an issue and can make things blurry in terms of the classroom environment and so on. So what about digital devices, phones, tablets, computers, and so on? What sort of impact does that have on the dyslexic learner?
Hi, Robert. Hi, people. Well, it is very important that we allow students to use those devices. They need it. So it is important for us as teachers to know that they need the devices. So this is super, super important. Sometimes we, for example, we want students to write an essay. So the dyslexic students have some problems with that. So what they can do is to use a recording. They can record what they want to say, and then the device, yes, the specific application can turn this to the text. Yes, so we are working with all students doing the same activity, but they are using technology, yes, to mediate, and well, they can reach and complete the activity. I don't know if I have answered.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And what about? I mean, one of the things that always, I guess it's a question. It's a question from Gabriela Galonch. But it's a great question because it was one of the things I was thinking about, which is assessment. So, what do we do with students who have dyslexia and are sitting for exams, and thinking particularly of you know, Cambridge exams, for example, in English? So Cambridge, I think, do allow students more time or use of computer. What else can we do to support those students?
Okay, for example, if we are going to ask students to, okay, in the test they have a reading activity, what we can do is to give the reading before, so they can have like a prior reading, yes, and then they can complete the test without any problem. So they need more time. It is not that they cannot cope with the different activities, but they need time to process or to complete the different activities. So this can be like an idea. For example, if we have planned like a very long exam, what we can do is to give like different parts, yes? So as soon as they complete one part, they can complete another. Yes, but it is recommended, especially for, because I was reading some of the questions, it is recommended for secondary school students. We are working with novels, in fact, in foreign language, to give, yes, the text before they complete the test.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one. I think some of the sort of more formal examiners don't do that, but I mean, that's something that, again, we need to think about. There was a couple of people who asked what were the names of the fonts. You mentioned some fonts that were particularly good. Can you just repeat those for us?
Yes, I will, but I want to say something about the previous question we were discussing. Sometimes it is a question of changing we as teachers, because it is that we tend to think that if we give the text to the students before, they are going to be okay, they are going to cheat. Yes, and in this case, they need. So think about students, believe in them. Yes, it's a question of like deconstructing teachers in a way, like teachers' ideas and beliefs. Okay, as regards fonts, I have recommended Trebuchet, Arial, Comic Sans, but there are some others that we can buy, we can purchase. There are two. One is Dyslexic, one is Sassoon, and the other is Abhond. Maria Lina in the chat recommended Open Dyslexia. I don't know that. And there's another which is very, very interesting, which is Dyslexic Font. I will type it in the chat. And in this case, you have some models, so you can obtain some free copies. And this company offers different letters, different fonts and types according to a different level of education. So for example, if we want a specific font for kindergarten, we can obtain one for kindergarten students. And then if we are working with secondary school students, well, we can obtain another which is more specific for secondary school students. So I will type this in the chat just in case you're interested. And it is Dyslexic font. But you can investigate, you can surf the net and see. And there are free samples. Yes. Another thing related to letters, to handwriting and to letters and fonts is like, I haven't said this, but it is recommended not to use capital letters in all the things that we provide to students. So use lowercase, because capital letters is for them to, when we want to highlight important information. So we can highlight, we can use capital letters, or we can use bold type.
Okay, that's really, really helpful. Thanks, Maria Eugenia. Well, thanks. We've run out of time, so we've come to the end of our session today. So I'd like to say a big thank you to our two speakers today. Both excellent presentations and very, very different. I've really enjoyed this one because it's something that all of my teachers, I've got 20 teachers working for us in our remote teaching center in central Buenos Aires, and they've all been really, really talking about the need to have more tools and understanding of particularly dyslexia. So Maria Eugenia, enormous thank you to you. We're really grateful to you for your time. Excellent presentation, and we've got hundreds and hundreds of people online who are enjoying this, and we're obviously going to be sharing this on YouTube and hoping to get it's the wonderful thing about doing these things online. Obviously there's advantages and disadvantages to it, but if we think about what we did last year with ELT Week, we ended up having nearly 500,000 views. Now if you think about that in practical terms, that's like filling River Plate Stadium 5 times. So that's the sort of power that you can get from doing things digitally. So we're grateful to you, Maria Eugenia. We're grateful to everyone who's attended today. Thank you so much. Tomorrow, my colleague María is going to be leading the sessions. We really look forward to seeing you then. We've got 2 really, really interesting. It's always Friday night is always the difficult one, right? But we've got some really good sessions. One is called the Empowered Educator, Thriving in the Classroom, Professional and Personal Growth. And that's going to be with the creators of the Teaching Touch, Belen Tour and Gisela Zocola, who are both incredibly engaging speakers. And we've got another one which is on human-centered AI for language teachers, practical strategies and innovative tools. Now, we had a previous session right at the beginning of the week from Pilar on AI, but this is from Karina Zell. She's a very experienced educator with a master's in linguistics and TESOL from the university in the UK. And it's a slightly different view of a subject which is just so important for everybody at the moment, because again, we talk about the digital divide, we talk about digital literacy and digital illiteracy and exclusion, you know, and so with artificial intelligence coming in, you know, there's not equal access to those tools, just the same as there isn't equal access to digital technology. So very exciting talks tomorrow. I hope you can make it. You can postpone the gin and tonics as the very British thing there to end an evening. You always have to have a gin and tonic in the summer. So postpone the gin and tonics until 8 o'clock when we finish tomorrow night. Thank you so much, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you, Maria Eugenia.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, British Council.